Welcome back to the Download Show. Today we're diving into the world of K-pop, and not just the music you hear on stage, but the system, the business, and the people who make it all happen. This is a special two-part series on the phenomena. In part one, we heard from Ani, a K-pop trainee, who gave us a rare look into the training system, the discipline, the sacrifices, and the dreams that drive young artists forward. Now in part two, we flip the perspective. I'm joined by Yong Kim, a previous guest and advisor to Korean K-pop talent management companies on overseas strategy, to understand how companies think about strategy, globalization, and the future of K-pop as an industry. Together, these conversations show both sides of the industry, the personal journey of a trainee, and the larger machine shaping K-pop into a global phenomenon. Welcome to the show, Yong.
And thank you for having me.
So you've worked closely with some of the top Korean talent management companies. How would you describe the philosophy that Ani mentioned actually in the first part of the series, the training philosophy of training very hard almost every day? She was saying 6 to 7 days a week for up to maybe even 5 to 10 years of training before debuting as an artist.
Yes, I think that's a key feature, key differentiator for Korean K-pop talent management, or I should say incubation companies, is that, as you know, in the West, artists more or less develop themselves, and then they bring in a demo tape and try to get on on a radio station or get noticed by a record company. So they're pretty much on their own. The big contrast in Korea is that Korean talent companies such as SM Entertainment, they actually scout for raw talent, unformed raw talent, when they're just 12, 13 years old. And then they put them through a very rigorous multi-year training program that not only teaches them from square one, singing, dancing, but also even how to walk, how to engage with fans. So they basically do a total training, a comprehensive training to produce what they would call the entire star or idol package. So I think that's what sets apart the Korean process compared to how artists develop in the West.
Is there a particular reason behind kind of this methodology or this practice, or was this something that just kind of sprung up from kind of just bottom up, and that was how they saw talent emerge?
Yeah, actually, what's interesting is that in fact, let me give you an example of SM Entertainment, which has now over a 30-year history. It was a pioneer in this type of in-house, talent management and incubation program. And the SM is named after the initials of the founder, Soo-man Lee, who himself, in his youth, was a pop star in Korea. And when he traveled to the United States and Europe, he noticed how the talent pipeline was actually quite random. It was you didn't know where the next talent would come, and he thought that with proper training, this could be systematized. So obviously, he got the initial spark of an idea from how girl groups were trained in Japan, in the good old J-pop era. So he was the first to design and create this multi-year program. And from a business perspective, it was perceived that this kind of systematic program would actually produce better and more consistent outcomes.
Very interesting. Now, but let's get into the numbers a little bit on this. How what are the numbers like? How many trainees until, let's say, that kind of final product? And what are the revenue drivers for a lot of, it's a multi-stage kind of type of question, but yeah, what are the drivers of revenue for a lot of these kind of pop stars? Is it most of the revenue is derived from concerts and some from image rights, or is that reversed?
Okay, I'll take that in your question in two parts. First is, you know, you're curious about, what size is the pool, the talent pool that they start with, um, or the little league, as they say in the United States. And usually, it can be, the number can be between 100 to 200, and it'll be whittled down over time to one or two boy bands or girl bands, as you know today. So, as you can see, the ratio is not very high. Or, and
Percent, really?
yeah, that's right. Um, Now, the second part of your question is, what are the revenue drivers? Obviously, in the days before YouTube and Instagram and TikTok, the primary driver obviously were, album sales and the royalties collected from, radio and also concerts and also whenever they have concerts, sale of merchandise. This was the classic, model. Now, with and obviously there would also be advertising sponsorship revenue also when the stars became quite big. Now this has changed in not completely disappeared, but changed in composition because of the ubiquity of YouTube and uh, streaming, music streaming models like Spotify. So the composition has changed. Artists still go on concerts, and also they sell merchandise on concerts, and there's advertising revenue. But the new factor is the contribution of sales from, say, albums has proportionately gone down. And so it's really a revenue share from streaming, such as the royalties that they can collect, given the music downloads and the music streaming volume that can be achieved through channels like Spotify, for instance. So it's
But that's
basically,
only
yeah, it's
that's a
similar
small
to a
proportion.
Netflix model.
But that revenue from album sales or from streaming, I guess, is it a much smaller proportion than what it used to be, and so therefore they have to make up more in terms of kind of concerts, fairs, and merchandise and
That's correct.
appearances.
Yes. So the contribution from album sales, which used to be a big driver historically, has dwindled a lot, meaningfully. So now the revenue from streaming and concerts and advertising sponsorship, you could call that these are the three primary drivers of revenue.
And how do kind of large management companies think about globalization? If you take a look at, BTS, I think originally they were one type of group, I think in Korea, very hip hop heavy group. But once it came out of Korea, in the US specifically, they became much more of a boy band, general poppy type of group. How do kind of these companies think about globalization? What markets do they think about first?
Yeah. Again, that's a very multifaceted question, and the key engine for global exposure again these days is streaming and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram. This is where if they have a new album or a new song, for Korean boy bands and girl bands, it's usually through online events on Instagram or TikTok or primarily YouTube, where they drop globally, simultaneously, in contrast to the old days when there were geographic constraints as to how quickly you could spread a new song or a new music. And particularly in the case of the United States, if you're a non-North American artist, if you wanted to make inroads, you had to break into the radio stations where they would keep playing your song. But now you could argue that there's no need to be played in a local radio station. You can just do a global drop, instantaneously on YouTube or similar media.
So to some degree, I guess they do the drop. They do on YouTube and then they say TikTok. They kind of gauge where's the market or where's the demand. Then they start kind of mapping out the tours based off of kind of the popularity and demand, essentially. Would I be
Yes,
correct in saying so?
that's correct. So you could even argue that the approach that Korean, not just SM, but HYBE, which obviously has developed BTS and YG and JYP, they are all very, very fan data driven. And obviously, this is helped by the ubiquity of YouTube and the like. So like you said, once, let's say, a new song drops globally, they will analyze audience reaction almost real time. And that drives how to, and again, this leads me to the second characteristic of K-pop is that another thing that they focus on is influencer management. So what I mean by that is that every region has a very, very loyal fan clubs and fan bases. And the Korean talent agencies will pay a lot of attention in supporting, in recognizing, and in encouraging some of the taste leaders in these fan clubs. And these fan clubs almost, you could argue, they run out and do the marketing themselves, on behalf of the company.
Okay, so I'm not. I don't think I'm quite familiar with the concept, but I do think I may. So in English football, right, in Premier League football, there's the Arsenal. I'm an Arsenal, huge Arsenal fan. So there's a Arsenal fan club that's here in Hong Kong and as well as anywhere in the world, and they do kind of events and get-togethers and that type of thing. So are you saying it's something similar? And this is all fan-driven, so the management company doesn't give anything to the fan club. But then the fan club does, I guess, viewing parties and what other responsibilities, or maybe not responsibilities, what else do the fan clubs do?
Yes. So you'll recall that the avid fans of BTS, for instance, they call themselves the BTS Army, right? You probably heard that expression. And
Yes.
that just shows you the level of loyalty that they have. And what the talent agent companies will do is, again, keep in touch with the some of the more active fan clubs or fan-based leaders in each region, and stay in touch with them and keep them in the loop as to next concerts, next songs, and next activities planned. And they always, make sure that they're the first ones to know about what are the plans for the artists. And also, in special cases, they will in each region give certain privileges, like concert tickets and invitations to special backstage fan events, which obviously encourage fan excitement and fan activity.
This is super interesting. And then from a office perspective, from a kind of a management perspective, I'd love to kind of get an understanding of, from a top management company, how is it generally divided? Is there kind of a fan analytics division, and they monitor what fans want and use data-driven approach there. And then I guess there's the talent management side, and then there's the content-driven side. That would be kind of how I think of organizationally how they would be organized.
Yeah, usually Korean talent management agencies, they have their own in-house data analytics team. And as you can imagine, they report directly to the C-suite. So the C-suite will have a more or less 360 view as to what, should I say, a heat map as to how a certain girl band, a boy band, or a certain song, or a certain album, or a certain concert, is being received by the audience.
Interesting. And that drives business strategy.
That's right. And in fact, in order to strengthen as well as increase the appeal, companies like SM have early on taken a very, in fact, a global approach to composing and, in fact, designing their music. So let me give an example. SM, for instance, has music studios in California as well as Sweden, right across the street from the ABBA studio in Sweden, in addition to the main facilities in Korea. And the reason they do this is what they do is whenever they have a new idea, a song idea or an album idea, they have specialists within the organization, but who are non-Korean. Some of them are based in California, some of them are based in Stockholm, Sweden, and then they do brainstorming together to see, and shape and design the melody, the harmony. Also, go back and tweak with the right amount of English words and the lyrics. So this is a very, very collegial, collaborative, in fact, multicultural activity, which ensures that acceptance across the world.
Right. I was going to say, so essentially this whole product or this whole process is driven in a way to make sure that the final product has at least inbuilt a global appeal.
Yes. So, and this is a direct, if I may, my observation is this is one of the key characteristics that differentiates J-pop and Cantopop or Hong Kong pop from K-pop is that you will recall that K-pop goes through this multicultural process, whereas J-pop and to a large extent Cantopop, the production side was very, very local and aimed, done by the locals and for the local market.
Actually, that's a really cool point. I should bring it to the history and to the elements of the history because in Asia, I think it seems like the waves of pop music, or at least popular, globally popular music, was Cantopop first in Hong Kong. I believe it's the 80s and the 90s, even started in the 70s. Then J-pop, you've got J-pop in the 80s and 90s, thousands, 90s and 2000s, and then K-pop. How did K-pop kind of emerge? Did it take a look at, did it study how Cantopop and J-pop did, and then, like you said, SM, the founder of SM kind of created his own thing? Did the government come in and help out with the start of the industry? How did it all come about historically?
Yeah, the Korean government did provide support where they could, in the same manner that they supported Korean gaming companies, Korean movie companies. In fact, early on in the Korean history, the government took a view that they wanted to support, the Korean content industry as a whole, including K-pop. So yes, there was government support, but the driver was obviously the talent management companies themselves, like for instance SM Entertainment. They obviously took the lead, and I think a difference is that again, they were open to taking influences from R&B, from hip hop, from rap, which was less pronounced in J-pop or Cantopop. Korean composers, Korean musicians, they took very freely lessons from Western music, and obviously they turned it into a Korean version, of course, and I think a lot of Korean musicians also went to study in the United States, for instance. Even the founder of SM Entertainment, Mr. Suman Lee, he also studied in the United States. And when he was there, he admitted that he received a lot of influences from American R&B and hip hop.
Now, so then if we compare kind of that phenomena of Cantopop and J-pop was more kind of local, then compared to Korean pop, K-pop, arguably then the revenue should also reflect that, right? So domestic revenue of K-pop should be just a small fraction of its revenue derived outside of Korea.
Yeah, but again, the geographic distinction is a bit tricky. The reason is that now, as you know, everything goes through streaming, right? So in order to understand that, to take a deep dive, instead of not only just looking at the data from the Korean music agencies, is we need to understand how the revenue model works in companies like Spotify, or YouTube. Again,
That's true. I
because,
get, yeah.
they're all joined at the hip right now.
Right. That's true. I guess the revenue is one indication of actually its popularity. But then I guess streaming numbers is also a huge part, if not the most part. That's the leading indicator, I guess, of revenue.
Yeah, and you could argue that the history of K-pop as a source of global appeal. If somebody wrote a history book, it would be 2009 would be probably be a sort of a dividing year, because that's when YouTube went global.
I see. And then in that, right. And so you really think that the K-pop benefited, that's maybe even a stronger word, leveraged the growth of internet technology, video technology, YouTube, benefit from Spotify and the globalization, I guess, of music.
Yes,
Internetization of music, in fact.
yes. Personally, that has been my observation. That I ask myself if we would be looking at the same phenomenon today without YouTube, without Instagram, without Spotify.
Interesting. Last question, how do you think, taking that kind of variant and taking on that thought of the internet as a leverage tool, how do you think about K-pop in the next 20, 30 years with AI content?
Yeah.
Uh,
So,
yeah.
well, that's the as they say, that's the $64,000 question. The question is out there. Will K-pop be just another wave like Cantopop and J-pop, or is it a new genre here to stay? Right. That's the real question. And to your point, it's right now nobody knows the answer. It's an open question, and I can observe that from my perspective that the Korean companies are doing everything they can to solidify their position and make it not just a phenomenon, but turn it into a genre that will last. And some of the indicators of that is that, for instance, you'll notice that they're slowly but gradually having boy bands and girl bands that are not 100% Korean artists, like Lisa in Blackpink, she's Thai, right? And also some of the new bands within as an entertainment, the artists are varied from Indonesia, from Singapore, from Thailand. And again, as I mentioned to you earlier, the music composition is not done 100% by Koreans only. If you will go to their music factory, if I can use that expression, you would see composers who are Swedish, who are British, who are American, as well as Korean. So that's also an effort to try to make the appeal global and take K-pop to the next level, and hopefully help it with its long-term staying power.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Yong, for your time.
And if I may, I would like to I guess in support of your question, one last snippet is that right now this little animation movie called K-pop Demon Hunters on Netflix has just become the most watched, the most streamed animation movie in Netflix history. And the title song called Golden has reached #1 in the Billboard Hot 100 list. And the young lady who composed and sang that song is a very, very talented lady whose artistic name is EJ. Before she moved to New York, she spent 10 years as a trainee at SM Entertainment. It's an interesting bit of history.
I knew she was a trainee. I didn't know it was SM. I knew she was a trainee, but didn't quite make it. But nonetheless, I thought it was interesting, right? So there are different careers, and actually, I did ask that from Ani. Even if you don't make it as as an idol, what other career paths are there? And right, I guess producer or being affiliated with the industry is one way. Again, thank you for your time, Yong.
Well, thank you.